At the end of the Bronze Age, around 1200 BC, something happened that should never have been possible. One of the greatest powers on Earth simply vanished. There was no clear defeat, no orderly succession, no detailed record of its fall, only silence. For centuries, no one even knew that empire had ever existed. The Hittites, a people who rivaled the Egypt of the pharaohs, controlled vast lands across Anatolia and dominated vital trade routes, were completely erased from human memory. Until thousands of years later, archaeologists began uncovering traces of something impossible, a massive city buried beneath the soil of modern-day Turkey. Cyclopean walls, monumental gates, temples, palaces, and thousands of clay tablets preserved like a time capsule. The city was called Hattusa, and it belonged to an empire that had disappeared so completely that history itself forgot its name. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to the beginning, long before Rome, long before classical Greece, long before most civilizations we know today. The Hittites emerged around 1600 BC in the mountainous region of Anatolia. Unlike many neighboring peoples, they didn't rely solely on farming or trade. They built a highly organized military state. Their army was a war machine, far ahead of its time. Hittite chariots were more robust and efficient than those of their enemies. They carried multiple warriors armed with spears and composite bows, capable of striking with devastating speed. But there was something even more impressive. The Hittites mastered advanced metalworking techniques. For a long time, it was believed they were the first to work iron, a material far stronger than bronze. Even if that idea is debated today, there is no doubt their military technology surpassed many of their rivals. With that advantage, they expanded rapidly. Cities were conquered, peoples were subdued. Vassal states were established to ensure tribute and stability. At the height of their power, the Hittite Empire controlled much of Anatolia and influenced regions across Syria and the Levant. It was a superpower of the ancient world, so powerful that it directly confronted Egypt. The Battle of Kadesh around 1274 BC is considered one of the greatest military clashes of antiquity. On one side, Pharaoh Ramses II. On the other, the Hittite king Muwatalli II. Thousands of soldiers and hundreds of chariots collided in a chaotic battle that neither side could decisively win. The outcome was unprecedented, a formal peace treaty, the first known international treaty in history. That alone reveals the status of the Hittites. They were not a minor kingdom facing a giant. They stood as equals to Egypt in power, influence, and prestige. Hattusa, their capital, reflected that greatness. Set in rugged terrain and protected by massive walls, the city was essentially a colossal fortress. Its gates, adorned with lions and sphinxes, projected power and intimidation. Inside those walls were palaces, temples, and administrative archives documenting the life of a complex empire. But within that very complexity lay a fatal weakness. The Bronze Age world was deeply interconnected. Empires depended on trade routes to obtain metals, timber, food, and essential goods. Political stability between kingdoms was crucial to keeping this system intact. It was a sophisticated international network, and sophisticated networks are vulnerable to systemic failure. Around 1200 BC, signs of crisis began to appear across the region. Prolonged droughts damaged harvests. Famine spread through urban populations. Internal unrest became more frequent. Vassal states began to rebel. At the same time, massive population movements were underway. Entire groups of displaced peoples began migrating in search of survival. Among them were the enigmatic sea peoples. Egyptian records describe invaders arriving by sea, attacking coastal cities with devastating force. They did not come only to plunder, they came to settle. Entire families traveled alongside warriors, suggesting a forced migration driven by extreme conditions. But the collapse was not caused by invasions alone. It was a domino effect. When international trade broke down, empires dependent on that network lost access to essential resources. Without metal, there were no weapons. Without grain, there was no army to feed. Without tribute, there was no functioning bureaucracy. The imperial machine began to fail. Records found in cities allied with the Hittites revealed desperate pleas for food aid. Rulers begged for grain to prevent widespread starvation. Those pleas were never answered. The center of the empire could no longer respond. Then came the final blow. Hattusa was abandoned and burned. There are no signs of immediate reconstruction. No new capital replaced it. No successor rose to claim the imperial legacy. It is as if the structure of the state simply evaporated. But the most intriguing part is this: the Hittite people did not disappear completely. Small Neo-Hittite kingdoms continued to exist for centuries. The language and culture survived in fragmented forms. What vanished was the imperial system, the administrative elite, political centralization, the ability to coordinate on a large scale. This suggests the collapse was not purely military, it was structural. Some historians compare the fall of the Hittite Empire to a civilizational blackout, as if the institutions sustaining the known world were switched off all at once. Without strong urban centers, writing ceased to be widely used in many regions. Technologies were forgotten. Trade routes disappeared. The Eastern Mediterranean entered a period of decline that would last for centuries. When archaeologists finally rediscovered Hattusa, they uncovered thousands of clay tablets preserved beneath the ruins. Diplomatic records, treaties, religious texts, and administrative documents. It was the voice of an empire that did not know it was about to vanish. Among those texts are letters revealing growing anxiety, internal conflict, and mounting external pressure. Nothing suggests the Hittites expected total collapse. To them, the empire seemed permanent, just as every great civilization believes itself to be. Perhaps that is the most unsettling part of the story. The Hittite Empire did not fall due to a single clear cause. It was not a decisive invasion, nor a single catastrophe. It was the convergence of multiple interconnected crises: environmental, economic, social, and military, that exceeded the system's ability to adapt. A collapse too complex to reverse. Today, the ruins of Hattusa remain silent beneath the Anatolian sky, a reminder that even the greatest powers can vanish without warning. Civilizations do not always need to be defeated to die. Sometimes the world around them simply changes too fast. And that is a lesson that echoes across millennia. Because if an empire capable of challenging Egypt, dominating vast territories, and building monumental cities could disappear almost without a trace, then no civilization is truly safe. If you want to uncover humanity's forgotten secrets and the stories time tried to erase, subscribe to The Hidden, because the past still holds mysteries that can reshape how we see the present.